Good evening. I hereby call to order the August 22nd special council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeJohn?
Here.
Mr. Mano?
Here.
Mr. Mercurio?
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta? Here. Mrs. Snyder?
Here.
Mrs. Teresi?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We will now move on to approval of the minutes from our special council meeting of July 18th, 2016. I hope everyone has had the opportunity to go over the minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions from those minutes? Mr. Mercurio.
Yeah, one change where it says, for resolution 2016-51, says the price for the regular salt is a little over $1 less. It should be $1 less per ton.
Okay. Angela, will you make the appropriate changes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. All in favor of approving the amended minutes of our July 18th meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Our meetings have been approved as amended. And since this is a special council meeting, we will forego with correspondence and announcements, and we will move on to comments from the public. We'll begin our public portion now. Pursuant to section 121.02, subsection H8 of the codified ordinances, each person will be allowed 5 minutes to speak with a maximum of 30 minutes for the entire public portion. Although this is not a time for public debate, it is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. Please note that there will be no personal attacks or comments. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to come forward and address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please raise your hand and be recognized, and then approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. It is now 7:03, and we will open the public portion. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Greg Pasami, 6356 Woodhawk Road. I was coming to ask the city council to allow me to widen the driveway portions of my driveway. We have gone through the Board of Appeals, and now we're here. And I just wanted to ask city council to allow me to widen the driveway. I have 5 vehicles in the driveway, with kids of all ages, parking situation. They come home at all hours of the night. Just for convenience factors, we don't have to move cars around. We like to widen the driveway. Just to show you, I guess, some examples of what I'd like to do. It's already on the street. We went around and decided what we'd like to do. If I could show you, I don't know if this is on.
Yes, you can set it on, there you go. Just move it up a little. There you go.
These are all different examples of what is going on the street, showing the driveway. Nothing really new that I want to do. I do have the dimensions I'd like to see. There's a couple of them that I'd like to show you too as well that we'd like to do.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Jim Briola, 310 North Broadway Street, Medina, Ohio. And I'm with North Coast Sign and Lighting. And actually, we're asking for a variance for a projecting sign for a winking lizard at 1355 Som Center Road. And I also, this is a plot plan showing the location. The building's a little bit isolated. Or the new building is going to be a little bit isolated. It's actually behind the row of stores, which is on Som Center Road. And the front of it is actually going to face the back of those stores. And to the side of it is parking right here. And it will also be facing the cinema. So we're kind of in a isolated position. We're asking for a 6-foot in diameter projecting sign on the front of the building, which is much less square footage of signage than is allowed, so that the people that are coming up behind the buildings here can see, and the people that are coming around the back of the cinema can see Winking Lizard. And it's going to be less signage, but we think it's going to be more visible.
Thank you, Mr. Viola. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Okay. We will begin by moving on to our resolutions, and we'll start with 2016-53. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2016-53, a resolution declaring September National Preparedness Month in the city of Mayfield Heights. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend?
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. We received a memo from our Fire Chief Elliott with detailed information regarding September as National Preparedness Month. Chief Elliott also spoke about the certification available from Cuyahoga County Office of Emergency Management and Mayfield Heights being in the process of being evaluated for that certification. We should be very proud of our chief and the department for taking these steps involved to become certified. With the disasters that have occurred in our country from either floods, fires, hurricanes, and so many other disasters, we should all make it our business as residents to be prepared for any disaster that could come our way. And we should be very thankful to our fire department for their knowledge and preparedness to assist the residents with any disaster that could come forward. Chief, would you like to come up and say anything?
Just for a little bit of background information for the residents watching tonight, the United States enacted this National Preparedness Month back in 2004 through FEMA. It's really a program designed to get people thinking about disasters, either being natural disasters, terrorist attacks, anything that might come away, and prepare for things such as planning, making plans, supplies list, and those kind of things. So I just think this is a good thing for our residents to know that we are prepared as a city, and also we'll be trying to get information out to them throughout the month of September to help them with some of this planning and preparedness through our social media outlets. So I appreciate Council's passage of this resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Any other discussion, questions, comments? Roll call on the motion to approve?
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Resolution 2016-53 has been approved. We'll move on to Resolution 2016-54. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2016-54, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in denying to Debbie Watkins Posanti and Greg Posanti, 6356 Woodhawk Drive, variance to allow widening the driveway to 29 feet and to add a parking pad next to the attached garage. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 863-15-046. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Mrs. Snyder, do you want to say something?
I do, I'm sorry. After listening to the resident, I kind of wanted to table this due to the fact that there's so many houses on the street, just to see what their reasons for the acceptance of those houses versus what his was. I understand he had no practical difficulty, or there was no practical reasoning behind why he wants it. He feels like it is, but I just wanted to see what the other houses, what the reasons for all those houses were. I don't know if that came up during the meeting, Joe,
No, that did not. We looked at this specific case.
on his case. Right.
Which was a matter of convenience rather than practical difficulty.
Right.
I'll second that motion.
We have a first and a second to table. Let's do a roll call.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Resolution 2016-54 has been tabled. We'll move on to Resolution 2016-55. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2016-55, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Jim Briola of North Coast Sign and Lighting Services, Inc., on behalf of Winking Lizard Tavern, 1355 Som Center Road, a variance to allow a double-sided identification sign to project 7.5 feet perpendicular from the west side of the building in conjunction with the new restaurant to be constructed on the property. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-29-014. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved
Second.
by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. We should have all received and reviewed the minutes from the August 15th BZA meeting where the applicant discussed his request for a 7-foot 6-inch identification sign on the west side of the building. Mr. Mercurio, would you like to add anything from BZA?
Sure, this was it was unanimous approval. We used a practical difficulty standard, and just given that that store is not on a main road, we felt that having a sign perpendicular to that roadway would allow it some visibility coming in from Mayfield Road or approaching it from Target.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, let me remind you that if you're going to uphold the decision of BZA in approving this variance, you will vote yes. If you would like to overturn the decision of BZA, you will vote no. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Resolution 2016-55 has been approved. We will move on to Resolution 2016-56. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2016-56, a resolution accepting a certain bid on behalf of the Hillcrest Fire Chiefs Association and the Hillcrest Technical Rescue Team for a mobile air trailer diesel compressor and cascade storage system and fill station, and declaring an emergency. Breathing Air Systems is the prospective contractor, and it's first reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Mano. At our July 18th council meeting, council authorized the city to advertise for bids for the purchase of this mobile air trailer for the Hillcrest Technical Rescue Team. So along with this resolution, council also received the agreement, which was attached to our resolution, from Breathing Air Systems, who will furnish this mobile air trailer, diesel compressor, and cascade storage system. Chief, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, this is a long time coming. The nine communities in the Hillcrest area, we utilize this vehicle for any time we have a structure fire or any kind of incident in which breathing air is needed. We house the current one in our station now. It's been put on a fairly old 1986 chassis, which is also serving as our heavy rescue truck. The truck is just overloaded right now, and this breathing air system is in there, so we're looking to separate this system and have that truck next door strictly for heavy rescue, and also have the separate trailer for the breathing component of it. So we did receive a grant from the state of Ohio, which is a matching grant, which helped all of our budgets here within the Hillcrest area. And we did go out to bid, as you mentioned, and the vendor that we accepted the bid on, we've used them in the past, and we've had very good service with them, and they currently serve and do our maintenance on our current equipment.
Thanks, Chief. Any other comments for the chief or about our resolution? Mr. DeJohn?
Chief, do the other cities participate in the cost of this, or?
Yes, the way
How
this
does that
works, the 9 communities, every year we put in $5,000. The city of Mayfield Heights is the financial agent for our tech team, and we have that's why we're going through this body today, is because we are the financial agent for the community, so, or for the technical rescue and the fire investigation unit. So we are the financial agent. I'm the president of the Chiefs group, so it kind of works out quite nicely. But we do put in, every city puts in the same amount every year, and we build up a balance in there, so it won't be any financial hardships on anybody's budget. We've saved for this for many years.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Resolution 2016-56 has been approved. We will now move on to our ordinance. That is 2016-28. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ordinance number 2016-28, an ordinance amending ordinance numbers 2016-11, 2016-25, and 2016-26, the appropriation expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2016. First reading.
Thank you. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Mr. Trimby provided a memo referencing the need for the supplemental appropriations, $110,000 for the air truck and tech rescue fund, Fund 209. Mr. Trimby, would you like to add anything, please?
Nothing really to add. It's just a special revenue fund. As the chief mentioned, we are the fiscal agent. There's over $230,000 unencumbered in that fund, so there's plenty of funds available for this appropriation. And of course, almost half of this purchase will be funded to the grant.
The grant, that's great. Any other comments or discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Ordinance number 2016-28 has been approved. We will now move on to motions, and we'll start with our first motion. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Motion to confirm the decision of the Planning Commission approving a preliminary/final site plan for a new 1,450 square foot accessory building contingent upon the approval of the Architectural Board of Review and Plan Review for Knollwood Cemetery at 1678 Som Center Road.
Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. The applicant went before planning on August 8th to discuss the structure that they want to build, as well as the location of the building where they're planning on putting this metal structure. The request was unanimously approved by planning. Mr. DeJohn, do you want to add anything to this, please?
Other than it's going to be a steel building on footers, it is a mixing building for topsoil and clay. It will have a gravel base to it. And it will be directly across from the current accessory use building there, and not seen by any of the residents.
Mayor, are we going to vote on this so that it is with the approval of the Architectural Board?
I would ask, Mr. Jameson, do you know the status of the meeting?
So either have to vote on it or table it. But if they, did the applicant mention that they would comply with?
Contingency.
But this says preliminary/final. So they're asking for both. They're not asking just for the preliminary. I'd like to make a motion to just table this motion.
I'll second.
Roll call to table motion regarding the accessory building at Knollwood Cemetery.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. This motion has been tabled. We'll move on to our next motion. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Motion to confirm the decision of the Planning Commission approving 392 feet of 72-inch solid vinyl fence along the entire length of the south side, Cedar Road, of the Wildflower Cluster Home Development on Hollyhock Court.
Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Manos, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. The applicant went before planning on August 8th, and their request was for the 6-foot vinyl fence along Cedar. It was unanimously approved. Mr. DeJohn?
I don't have anything else other than, they did say that the salt is destroying their current landscaping there, and the dead landscaping will be removed, once this fence is put up.
Any other comments? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes, this motion has been carried. Mr. Murphy, we'll move on to the next motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Motion to authorize the sale of vehicles through GovDeals, a 2011 Dodge Charger, a second 2011 Dodge Charger, and a 2012 Dodge Charger, and the VIN numbers are identified in the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Mr. Tribby, would you like to add anything? Of course.
No.
Of course you would.
Oh, just 3 less vehicles in our fleet, obviously. The cars, the SUVs were purchased early in the year, so now we're just moving these out of the fleet.
And these were all police vehicles.
Correct.
Any other comments or discussion?
Just-
Mr. DeJohn?
So it's about 4 or 5 years that we get out of these vehicles?
It depends on how they're used. It depends on if one of the particular cars might be a car that's used almost daily. They could be sold off after 2 or 3 years. It just depends. These were kept longer because they had lower mileage, but then were used either by a special unit or one of the officers or detective bureau. It depends on what they were assigned to. But now it's time to, shall we say, retire them.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes, this motion has been carried. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight, and as our summer recess ends, we will begin our regularly scheduled council meetings September, with our first meeting beginning at 7 p.m. on September 12th here in council chambers. And also, we will be having our Coffee with Council breakfast to be held at the Ross C. DeJohn Community Building on September 17th at 9 a.m. So we hope many of our residents will join us that morning on the 17th.
Madam
Go ahead.
Chairman,
Mr. Mano?
I have a question. Is Mrs. Finney ill?
I don't know. I just learned from,
This is the 4th council meeting that she has missed this year. And I believe the charter covers the absence of council meetings, of council people to the meetings. I mean, if she's ill, that's one thing, but I don't understand. She was made aware of this meeting as well as the other meetings, just like all the rest of us. And yet, we're all here and she's not. So I'm just concerned, is she ill, or what is her reason for missing this meeting?
I can't tell you. I found out this evening as well, but I'll talk to our law director and the mayor about it.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Our meeting is now adjourned.